3 stories people swear are true. The kind that don't end when the lights come back on. This first one starts in a normal house with a basement that never stopped changing. Welcome back to the Black Hour Stories. Tonight's video is exactly what the title promised. 3 creepy thrillers that linger long after you hear them. The first one sounds harmless at first. Just a family, just a house, just a basement. But some places don't stay finished, and some homes keep growing long after they should have stopped. The house sat at the end of a quiet cul-de-sac, built sometime in the late 90s, with beige siding and a backyard that sloped down into trees. Nothing about it stood out. The family moved in when their oldest son was 5. The basement was unfinished back then. Concrete floor, exposed beams, a single light bulb hanging from a wire. The father planned to turn it into a rec room one day. The mother liked the idea of storage. The kids stayed away from it. It smelled like dust and cold stone, the kind of place that swallowed sound when you stood too still. The first door appeared after their first year. The father noticed it while carrying boxes down after Christmas. It was set into the far wall, where there used to be nothing but concrete. A plain wooden door, painted white, with a brass knob that looked older than the rest of the house. He assumed he'd forgotten it was there, or that it led to a utility crawl space. When he opened it, he found a finished laundry room, clean tile. Shelves already stocked with detergent the brand they used. The smell hit him hardest. Warm cotton, soap, something faintly like the mother's perfume. They joked about it at first. Said the previous owners must have sealed it up. Said it was a bonus they somehow missed during inspection. The mother liked how quiet it felt. The kids liked that. It was warmer than the rest of the basement. Life went on. They used the room. They stopped thinking about how it hadn't shown up on any paperwork. The second door arrived the next year on the opposite wall. This one opened into a small den. Couch, television, framed. Family photos that weren't theirs but felt close enough to make them uneasy. The faces were wrong in subtle ways. Smiles held too long, eyes that didn't quite match. The smell in that room was different. Old books. Dust warmed by sunlight, even though there were no windows. The father checked the foundation outside. There was no extra space, no bump out. The house shouldn't have been able to hold these rooms. By the 3rd year, they stopped inviting people into the basement. Another door appeared, then another. A guest bedroom. A home office. Each one finished, each one clean. Each one smelling like something the family recognized but couldn't place. The mother said it reminded her of her childhood home. The father said it smelled like hospitals and holidays. The kids said nothing, but they stopped playing downstairs altogether. They said the doors made noise at night, not opening, just settling, like someone leaning their weight against them. The door that changed everything showed up the year their youngest turned 9. It was smaller than the others, set low into the wall at the end of the basement hallway that hadn't existed before. The paint was pale blue. The knob was scuffed like it had been used for years. When the mother opened it, she felt her stomach drop before she even stepped inside. It was a child's bedroom, twin bed, stuffed animals. A desk with crayons laid out mid-drawing. The walls were covered in glow-in-the-dark stars, placed at the exact height a child would reach. None of it belonged to any of their kids. The smell in that room was the worst. Crayons, clean sheets, and something else underneath. Something like the inside of a closed room that had been lived in for a long time. The father noticed the closet door was slightly open. Inside were clothes in sizes that didn't match anyone in the house. Shoes with worn soles. A winter coat with a name stitched into the tag. A name none of them recognized, but all of them felt like they should. That night, the mother dreamed of footsteps under her bed. The father dreamed of measuring walls that wouldn't line up. The youngest woke up crying, saying the basement was breathing. The next morning, they decided to sell the house. They called a realtor. They called an inspector. They avoided the basement. But the doors didn't stop appearing. One more showed up before the week was over, then another. The hallway stretched longer, bending slightly, like it was following the shape of something underneath the house. The final door came the night before the listing photos. It was at the very end, wider than the rest. The wood was dark. The knob was cold. When the father opened it, the smell poured out first. Soil, rain, rot. The room beyond wasn't finished. It was earth, a massive hollow space dug out beneath the foundation. The walls were packed dirt, carved smooth by hands or time. Set into the far wall were impressions, dozens of them. The shapes of doors that hadn't been built yet, waiting. They left that night. They took what they could carry. The house sold months later, cheap, to a couple who didn't ask many questions. The listing mentioned a unique basement layout. The family never spoke about it again. But every year, around the same time, the mother dreams of a new door being finished. Somewhere beneath a house that keeps growing. That's the first story. A house that didn't just hold a family, but learned them. If you think you know what's under your feet, the next two might change your mind. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments. And if you want the next story, make sure to like and subscribe. We'll see you in the dark. The second tale is simpler on the surface. No strange houses, no growing rooms, just a phone, a woman living alone, and voicemails that should never have existed. This one doesn't ask you to believe in monsters. It only asks you to believe in what your own voice might do when you're not listening. The woman lived in a third-floor apartment above a closed bakery. Brick building, old pipes. The kind of place where sound carried through walls in ways that made you pause sometimes. She worked normal hours, slept light, kept her phone on the nightstand with the ringer turned up, just in case her sister called from out of state. She didn't talk much to her neighbors. She liked routines, coffee at 7, shower at night, phone plugged in before bed. Nothing about her life felt loose or unaccounted for. The first voicemail came in at 3:11 a.m. Her phone didn't ring. She saw the notification when she woke up for work. One missed voicemail. The number was listed as unknown, but when she tapped it, her phone displayed her own contact card, her name, her photo, her number. She assumed it was a glitch. Phones did that sometimes. She listened anyway, expecting silence or static. It was her voice. Not recorded like a message left on speaker. It sounded close, like the phone had been held inches from her mouth. Her voice was low, careful, whispering, even though there was no one else in the room. She said her own name once, like she was making sure she was still there. Then she said, "You can't trust him, not when you meet him. Not when he smiles like that." The message cut off abruptly, like the call had been dropped. The voicemail length read 12 seconds. She didn't remember recording it. She checked her call log. No outgoing calls at that time, no incoming ones either. She told herself she must have sleep-talked and somehow triggered the phone. It felt thin as an explanation, but she needed one. She deleted the voicemail and went to work. All day, she caught herself thinking about the way her voice had sounded older than she felt. The second voicemail arrived 2 nights later. Same time, same number, same voice. This time she sounded more urgent, breathing harder. "You're going to think he's familiar," her voice said. "That's how it works. That's how it gets close." There was a sound in the background, fabric shifting. A faint thump, like someone sitting down on a bed. When she listened to it, she was standing in her kitchen, and she realized her hands were shaking hard enough to rattle the phone. She tried to prove it was fake. She recorded herself whispering into the phone, trying to match the tone. It didn't feel right. The voicemail version of her voice carried something else. Not panic. Not fear. Certainty. Like it already knew how things would end. She turned off her phone at night after that. Powered it down completely. Still, the next morning, it was on again. Battery at 80%. One new voicemail waiting. This one was shorter. "You turned it off before," her voice said. "That doesn't stop it." She sat on the edge of her bed and listened to it 3 times in a row. She checked her apartment. The locks, the windows, the bathroom. Nothing was out of place. No signs of anyone else being there. Her phone showed no record of turning itself back on. No record of the call. Just the message. She stopped sleeping. Or if she did, it was in short bursts that left her feeling hollow. She started noticing gaps in time, small ones at first. A mug in the sink she didn't remember using. A chair pulled out slightly from the table. Once, she found her phone on the floor across the room when she was sure she'd left it charging. The voicemails kept coming. Every other night. Always from her number. Always from her voice. Each one added another warning, not about what would happen. About who would be there when it did. The man showed up the following week. He moved into the apartment across the hall. She heard him struggling with boxes through the door. She told herself it meant nothing. But when she opened her door to take out the trash, he was there. Tall, tired smile, holding a lamp. He apologized for blocking the hallway. His voice was calm. Familiar in the way strangers sometimes are when they remind you of someone you can't quite place. He said her name without asking first, like he'd already heard it somewhere. She laughed it off, went back inside, locked the door. That night, the voicemail came early. 1:47 a.m. She hadn't fallen asleep yet. She watched the screen light up. Her own number calling her. She let it go to voicemail. When she listened, her voice was strained. "He's closer now," it said. "You have to stop leaving it where he can hear it." In the background, she heard the hum of her refrigerator. The exact same rhythm as the one in her kitchen. The next morning, she smashed her phone with a hammer in the bathtub. Shards of glass. Bent metal. She wrapped it in a towel and threw it away in a dumpster 3 blocks from her apartment. She bought a cheap replacement. New number. New account. She didn't tell anyone. She slept for almost 12 hours straight that night. No dreams, no messages. For the first time in weeks, her apartment felt quiet again. The final voicemail arrived on her new phone 2 days later. No missed call, no notification sound. Just a message waiting when she unlocked the screen. The number was unlisted. The voice was hers, but wrong now. Hoarse, tired, like it had been using the throat that wasn't meant for it. "You shouldn't have destroyed it," her voice said. "That was the last thing tying me to you." There was a pause. Then softer, "He's listening now." She never heard the man across the hall move out. His apartment stayed occupied, lights on at night, shadows passing under the door. She stopped using her phone entirely. But sometimes, when she wakes up in the dark, she can hear herself breathing from somewhere that isn't her body. Slow, patient, waiting for the moment she finally answers. That was the second story. A warning that came from the only place it could never be ignored. The last one takes us somewhere wider. A whole town where no one sleeps and no one seems to mind. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. When you're ready, say the word and we'll finish this. This is the last one tonight, and it's the strangest. No single house, no single person. Just a town where something simple stopped happening and nobody seemed worried about it at all. This is the story of a place where no one sleeps anymore, and why the people there insist that everything is fine. The town sat off a 2-lane highway that most drivers passed without noticing. One gas station, one diner, A cluster of houses pressed close together, like they were bracing against something. The visitor only stopped because his car overheated just outside the city limits. By the time he coasted into town, the sun was going down, and the air felt oddly charged, like a storm had just passed through without rain. The first thing he noticed was the lights. Every house was lit up. Porch lights, living room lamps, bedroom windows glowing soft yellow and white. It wasn't a holiday. It wasn't a blackout recovery. It was just how the town looked at night. He parked near the diner and went inside. The place was busy in a quiet way. People sat at booths and the counter, drinking coffee, eating pie, talking in low voices. No one yawned. No one rubbed their eyes. The clock on the wall read 11:38 p.m. He asked the waitress if there was a motel nearby. She smiled and said they didn't really get travelers anymore. When he joked about everyone being up late, she shrugged and said, "We don't really sleep here." She said it like she was talking about recycling or local taxes, just a fact of life. The other customers nodded along, not looking at him directly. Someone laughed at a joke that hadn't been told. He spent the night in his car. It was cooler outside than he expected. He tried to sleep, but every time he closed his eyes, he felt watched. Not threatened, just observed. Like he was the only moving thing in a still room. When he opened his eyes, he saw people walking the sidewalks, standing in windows, sitting on porches, staring out into the dark. None of them ever seemed to blink. In the morning, nothing changed. The sun came up, but the lights stayed on. People went about their day. Shops opened. Kids waited for a school bus that never arrived. They didn't seem tired. Their movements were smooth, careful, like actors who'd practiced being human long enough to get the timing right. He asked a man at the gas station how long it had been since anyone slept. The man thought about it for a moment, then said, "Long enough that we stopped missing it." The visitor noticed the shadows that night. They didn't line up with the bodies casting them. A woman stood under a street lamp, perfectly still, while her shadow stretched and twisted along the sidewalk, shifting like it was testing its joints. A group of people passed him, their shadows lagging a second behind, then snapping back into place. No one reacted. No one seemed to see it. When he pointed it out to a local, the person smiled thinly and said, "That's just the light playing tricks." On the third night, he realized something worse. The people weren't awake, not really. They never blinked because their eyes weren't drying out. They never yawned because their bodies weren't asking for rest. They ate, but never seemed hungry. They spoke, but only when spoken to. Their shadows, though, were restless, always moving, always adjusting, like they were the parts that were still alive. He tried to leave before dawn. His car wouldn't start. The town felt tighter at night, like the buildings leaned in closer when the sun went down. He walked the streets, looking for anyone who felt real. In a playground, he found a little girl sitting on a swing, gently rocking back and forth. Her shadow dragged long across the ground, looping around the swing set poles. When he asked her why no one slept anymore, she said, "We gave that part up so they could stay awake." She pointed to the ground. That was when he understood. Whatever lived there didn't come from above or below in the way people usually mean. It came from the absence of rest, from the space left behind when the mind never shut its doors. The shadows weren't attached to the people. They were using them, borrowing their shapes, wearing their routines like masks. The bodies were just places to stand while something else stayed alert. By morning, the visitor was gone. His car was found parked neatly by the gas station, engine cold. The locals said he must have moved on. Travelers did that sometimes. But every now and then, when the lights flicker at night, there's an extra shadow on the sidewalk, one that doesn't match anyone standing nearby, one that looks like it's still trying to remember how to sleep. And that's the last story. 3 warnings. 3 places where something small went wrong and never stopped. If any of them felt a little too close to home, you're not alone. Tell us where you're listening from in the comments. And if you want more stories like these, make sure to like and subscribe. This has been the Black Hour Stories. We'll be waiting when the lights go out.